Hello and welcome back to my June 2022 bullet journal setup. Like I said, it has been so hectic these past 3 months, and I'm really excited to share these spreads with you guys. I really kind of just went for it as far as artistically and graphically, both in the theme and choice of color. The theme I went for June was music, and I wanted to do it in a very like kind of retro way where it was mostly old records from, like your typical vinyl discs of the from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s that everybody carried around, and a record player. Just kind of to give it a little bit both of a graphic design but also a very vintage style and feel. So this double spread, full spread cover page was quite a task. I wanted to do a complete spread of just the imitation of vinyl discs. So I just first drew it out with a bunch of different sizes of circles and just started building them one on top of the other, overlaying them, and until I felt like it just fit the spacing of the spread just right, and then had June centered across the middle of the spread. And I went for some really like different styles of markers between Crayola, brush pens, and the Archer and Olive acrylographs in order to create a different level of effect and give it this really sense of dimension on the page, along with providing some of them, giving them more clean lines and just really experimenting. That's probably what I love the most about this month's setup is I really experimented graphically and artistically compared to how I usually do. And that's what makes stuff like this so much fun. And now we get into, like I said, I really have been experimenting filming wise as far as different angles. And what I love about this month's setup is that this was kind of the best month to really do it, where I can show you like little things I do, even though they're very simple little graphic details, they really do add such an incredible like personal touch to a spread. So I have zoomed in a little bit on one side of the spread, and I'm just starting to add like kind of the white streaks were meant to imitate those like really intense like grooves that you see, or how like when you hold up a vinyl record they tend to shine a bit. So that's really that like over exaggerated, very simplistic but graphic interpretation of a material, but also adding like a very diverse range of color. Like a lot of these colors I picked, besides the black and gray, like this red, the violet, the dark purple, they're typical colors you don't necessarily see on vinyl, and that's what kind of makes this a bit more personable. So now I'm just adding more and more dimension as I just keep adding more colors and just introducing new styles. And I'm not gonna lie, I am one of those people that I don't like to have a bunch of different colors within one spread. But I was like, well, I really want to show how I can do this or how this works, and I really want to just try something new. I'm definitely one of those people that I pick my color palette quite early. I tend to set out my markers. Sometimes I will literally pull out all my markers and set them on that placemat that you see up there, and just start pulling stuff and then putting stuff back until I get a sense of a color palette that I like, especially when I'm doing something that is considered a whole lot more than like 4 or 5 colors. You're adding like a bunch of different dimensions within your spreads and within the whole like theme of the month, and interpreting it in that way. So I'm adding in a little bit of like a faded, like colored pencil going back over those graphic lines that I put in with the white Archer and Olive acrylograph, just to kind of give it more of like a faded tone. And then I'm going in with one of my gold gel pens to, again, it's like a little, that like typical graphic, very vector style of drawing, that adding like a little bit of shine to each disc, giving it a little like star shine that would implement what it reflects in the strong light of a window if you hold it up to the light. And now we are jumping into the next spread, which is the monthly calendar and my habit tracker. For the monthly calendar, I really, like I said, the theme this month was I'm just gonna really go out of my comfort zone, and I'm gonna try to draw stuff that I have never attempted to draw before. And for the monthly calendar, I decided to do kind of like one of those like travel size styles of a record player, where it's built in like it's in a suitcase. And I really experimented both with continuing that color palette, and I held it to being a bit more the purples and pinks that I pulled from the cover spread. But then I just started really mixing, almost like painting. I took a lot of my Archer and Olive acrylographs once I got all the line work in there and I had everything outlined the way I wanted it. And then I just started layering a bunch of my acrylographs to mix and paint and then blend in a certain way, and also taking my brush pens and using those to kind of go over it again and again to give it I was trying to constantly build up that really faded look. And I just gave the dates a little bit of a yellow accent just so I know, like, hey, here's your numbers, there it is, because I actually have horrible eyesight. I mean, it's really bad. That's probably why a lot of the time whenever I do spreads or I write stuff in my bullet journal, I tend to have a handwriting that it's this very big, chunky font. Like it's not like super fine. I write letters a lot bigger than most people tend to, especially in the bullet journaling community. At least that was something I really noticed compared to my style versus somebody else's. But at the end of the day, it's definitely my individual style and it's personal to me. And that's another thing that I love so much about what I do in bullet journaling and why I find it so relaxing, both as exploring artistically, but also that it's completely personable to me. And that's the best part about bullet journaling. Everything you do in a bullet journal, whether you're doing something minimal, whether you're doing something that's artistic, like whatever you do, it's personal to you. It doesn't have to make sense to anyone else as long as it makes sense to you. And now we are jumping into the habit tracker page. The habits I chose to track are actually not much different compared to my usual. um, I chose to track my water intake, self care, my sleep, how often I tidy up my apartment, my savings, how often I journal, reading, and I'm trying to again cut down my social media intake and try to keep track of days that I don't use social media at all. Like I don't look at it, I don't post anything because I'm really trying to distance myself a little bit from it. I think a lot of us can find that we end up scrolling through like Instagram and before we know it, it's been 3 hours, or we start scrolling through TikTok and before we know it, it's been 4 hours and you've gotten nothing done for the day. That's the only con with the society that we live in, where we have things easily at our disposal to entertain ourselves. So it's definitely something I've been really trying to crack myself on and not do it as often, and try to find time not only just to get tasks done, but also find time to be more intuitive into myself and more kind of a sense of solitude in a way, and try to find things where you don't need that sense of gratification that's very artificial. That's definitely the one con about social media, is that I feel a lot of it is very artificial. Everyone only shows, what they want you to see. And, that includes like me. So a lot of the time I know that, hey, like it's really cool to look at this stuff and it's really cool to see a bunch of different creative minds come together, but at the same time, it's not like the end all be all. So for this page, I decided to kind of make it look like, for the habit tracker, it's the like cardboard sleeves that the vinyl goes in and adding the discs, and then in the middle kind of creating just something inspired by a purple, blues, and pinks rainbow of a music staff. And I don't know what it is, but every time I look at these pages, it is so satisfying in my brain. I don't know why. It might be the colors, and it's probably color psychology or color theory that I probably didn't realize I was doing, but I ended up doing. And I just love how this spread in total turned out. And now we are jumping into the next spread. This is truly more of a list and a tracking spread I have a lot of things going on in June. Like I had a lot. It was a lot for 1 month. So I officially have made like my folders both like physically and digitally for some of the grad schools I'm applying to, and for the requirements for each application I split them up into 3 packages. While like one package is like things that I could easily work on and control before applications open, another is things I can't really get until applications open, and then the last package is things that I need to work on starting to retrieve once applications open. So I kind of categorized things that I needed to get done and then listed out all the days in the month of June, 1 through 30, to have a space to kind of write down like a check-in, like, hey, what did you do today to work towards these packages? It wasn't necessarily about getting something done. It was more keeping track and keeping myself accountable. Like, did you work on this today? And then giving just this overview of an idea of what I need done. And then on the other page, I did a competition board and portfolio tracking again. And it was that same mentality and idea that I was doing for my grad application tracking of, did you work on this today? What did you do today? Like, what do you need to get done tomorrow? And just holding myself accountable, especially since at the time of this filming, I only had about a week and a half left to finish my competition board for an architecture competition that was international that I was doing. And it was a very stressful process because, of course, what did I do? I procrastinated. I waited till the very last minute to try to assemble this board. And I did manage to get a board of some kind assembled, and I did manage to finish a lot of photoshopping and things and a lot of post-production for the architecture competition, but I'm not going to lie. I learned my lesson from this. I won't do that again. I will never do that again. That was very stressful. I truly felt like I was back in school. And let's just say that is not fun when you're working full-time and you're staying up till like 2, 3 in the morning trying to get like a bunch of stuff photoshopped, get a bunch of stuff like touch-ups drawn for drawings, and like getting a bunch of different visuals together and then trying to accumulate them on a board, and you're staying up till like 2, 3 in the morning every night for the first like week and a half of June. And then you still got to get up and go to work at 8 a.m. the next day. I literally actually ended up, because I was so tired, and my bosses knew that I had an international competition going on, and they knew there was probably going to be a day I wasn't going to be there and I was going to call out. I did like let them know like, hey, I'm probably not coming in on this day. And it was the day that the board was due. And they were like, okay, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Sometimes like it's great when you have bosses that are that nice. It really is great to be. That's what I love about my job right now. I'm in an environment where my bosses are very supportive of things that I do, both design-wise, both also trying to gain knowledge and learning of becoming a future architect one day. And they understand that, that's life. And I just love that they are extremely supportive in a lot of career decisions that I'm making, between both like where I want to go to grad school, but also things like this where I've decided, hey, I'm going to do an international competition, but I'm still going to work full time. How are you guys willing to help me? And now we are at the first set of weekly spreads. Now again, because I had my competition in the last week of June, I really did some very custom weekly spreads. The first 7 days of the month, I did a hourly schedule, kind of similar to what I did in May when I only had a couple days left in May because I was so busy. I didn't really get to set up anything and like be as super artistic as I am being this month. So I had an hourly schedule. I kind of would give myself quotes of the day or a goal of the day. And then I had a space for my tasks and a space to summarize the day. Like, what did you do today? Like, what have you gotten done towards productivity? How have you allocated your time? So I was really getting in depth of breaking down each day. And I'm not going to lie, that is really helpful for me. Kind of writing down an hourly schedule of what I know is going to be my day, or try to plan out like day by day. It's very helpful as far as trying to narrow in and focus on like what set of tasks can you get done within this period of time, whether it's when I'm in the early hours of the morning, in between work, on my lunch break, or when I come back from the gym in the evenings. And it also helps me to really push forward, and it really contributed to thinking about for starting in this next quarter that we're going to be going into, how do I want to start reworking my routine? Because if there's anything I have figured out from June was the routine I had, it was not working. I needed to do something to change it where I really could provide myself more time to both do things I enjoy and my hobbies, but also time to really start getting stuff done. September, October is going to be rolling in real quick. I mean, we're already halfway through July, and that's usually when grad applications like all open. And I have nowhere near enough stuff done to be prepared for when they open. My original overall goal was to have my portfolio almost completed by the time applications opened. Right now, I would say I'm at 30%, and that is not good considering it's like we're 2 months out. And that's not that's not working for me dog. It's not working. So I really do have to, starting in the next like 2-3 months, I'm really gonna have to push, and that's gonna involve me dedicating and changing up my schedule very drastically. So in this set of spreads, I decided to kind of add a break from this style of a weekly pages and weekly days. I wanted to do an accent page that was both at the top a quote and accent art. The quote I picked was, "With the right music, you either forget everything or you remember everything." I love that quote because, God, that is so accurate. It's just very accurate. As someone who spent a lot of their primitive years and a lot of their childhood being a musician, by the time I was 15, I was a working musician. I actually got paid to play at weddings. I got paid to play at state theaters. I was playing in front of, I think the largest crowd I ever played in front of in my childhood was probably about 1,000 people, which you think that's not a lot. And then as the years started going on and on, it was like 1,000 people when I was probably 13, 14 years old. And then by the time I was in my senior year of high school, I had played in front of like 5,000 people, which it's so crazy to think back because I am actually quite shy when on stage. It's probably why music ended up not really being my choice of career. And I'm grateful that I played in a group most of the time. I very rarely did solos. The solos I did do, I would practice months and months in advance. But that's probably another reason music is so passionate and such an incredible like component to my life, because it was such a huge part of my life. I'm 24 years old, and by the time I was 5, I was a musician, and I really started to perfect that craft. And I was truly a musician, and then working by like 14, 15, and then I didn't really quote unquote retire from being a musician or doing music until I was 19. And that really was my first career. I dedicated a lot of my life to that, and I still dedicate a lot of my hobbies to it, including writing this dedication for all this music that you hear in the backgrounds of these videos. So I think that's why music is just so personal to me, and that's why I was also really excited to just go with this theme and kind of just let my like gut choices and my emotions just kind of be the driver of any artistic emblems I was going to put in this month's theme. and we have finally reached the end. Like I said, there's just something about this theme and these spreads. They just make me so happy. The colors and music, one of my first loves. Like, it's just, it's like everything I love in 1 month. And if there's anything I'm really looking forward to is not only really using these as kind of a guide and an idea for different productivity spreads that I really want to start implementing into my routine, but also just the idea of like I'm just so happy that it makes me happy. So if there's anything, I hope is that if you made it to the end of this video, that seeing this flip through and seeing these spreads make you just as happy as they make me. But that is all for now, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.